All right, I am very excited today to welcome founder and CEO of VanHack, Ilya Brotzky, to Coastal Front. Ilya was born in Siberia and moved to Vancouver in 1993 and later received his degree in business administration from Cornell University. While working in Brazil for Vale as a management trainee, he thought of the idea that would eventually become VanHack. VanHack is a network of software engineering, design, and digital marketing talent. With over 215,000 members from over 100 countries, VanHack is the largest workforce that is ready to relocate in the world. VanHack is free for job seekers and they assist with the entire visa and relocation process. Outside of being a CEO, Ilya is a father of a young son, age 1 year old, fan of sports, including the Canucks. And today we're going to be talking about the start of VanHack, how that began, where the tech industry is today as far as a global shortage of work and talent, and how VanHack is becoming a resource to hire that talent. So Ilya, thanks for being on the show today.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Okay, so let's start with yourself. You're from Siberia.
Yeah, so I was born in Siberia in a city called Krasnoyarsk, and when I was 2.5, we moved to Israel, and then from there, 2.5 years later, when I was 5, moved here to Vancouver.
Wow.
The reason was just very simply mostly because of my mother, actually. She's Jewish, so any person who's Jewish can leave to go to Israel from the Soviet Union. So a lot of people did that in the early 90s, right before the collapse.
Yeah.
And we spent 2 years there, and then my family was looking for a way to go to North America, and the immigration consultant suggested Vancouver, because my mom has a forestry degree. So even though it was my dad's idea to relocate, we always joke that it's my mom who actually got us to the right place here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So we moved got here when I was 5, and I think went through kind of a typical immigrant child experience, really culture shock.
Yeah.
I remember going to school in October. We arrived in October and going to school on the 31st of October and not understanding why everyone was looking like a skeleton or a witch or dressed up for Halloween. I knew 4 words: yes, no, mom, and dad.
Wow.
So anytime someone would ask me a question, I would just say randomly one of those 4 words, like what's your name, mom, and how old are you, dad? But eventually, there's as Canada has a very welcoming society, a lot of the kids were really nice and helped me out, and kind of got integrated into society here, and it's been great.
And then instead of going to UBC, you actually went to Cornell, is that right?
Well, actually, I went to both, because UBC I was doing arts, and I really wanted to do business, and I couldn't get into solder. But with Cornell, I was able to get into the Dyson School of Business there, and that was a huge reason why I went there.
Well, one of my favorite parts of that story you just told is that you couldn't get into business school in Vancouver at solder.
Well, yeah.
Now we're going to talk about this amazing company that you've built. So I think that's a real message to deliver to any young person listening to this.
Well, yeah.
Similar to yourself, I couldn't get into most school. I actually had to go to college first because my grades were worse than yours in order to get myself just into this university called University of Victoria.
Yeah, UVic.
UVic.
It's a great place.
Okay, so you graduate from Cornell, you go and work at Vale down in Brazil.
Yeah.
And through that, you sort of, that was what became the inspiration for VanHack, is that correct?
Well, yeah, there's a lot that went on there, and I'll try and kind of summarize. Basically what happened is I wanted to get a job abroad after university. I was part of a group called ISEC, which is, for anyone that maybe has heard of it or not, it's the world's largest nonprofit run by students, and it helps students get internships or jobs abroad. So, similar to VanHack. And they had, I was looking for jobs and I got 3 offers, one in Brazil, one in China, and one in India. And the one in Brazil was through ISEC at Valley. And it was just very randomly I got an email saying, hey, they're looking for Canadians to go to Brazil. And I got this job. Again, I felt very lucky. And when I went there, I realized that I really liked Brazil more than I liked mining. I didn't study mining. In fact, when I was about to go to work to Brazil, they're like, do you know Portuguese? Like, do you know anything about Brazil? No, not really. Do you know anything about mining? Not really. Like, how did you get this job? So it was kind of not a fit from the start, although I learned a lot and had a great experience with the culture and just I learned Portuguese. And I saw that there was kind of this nascent tech scene. So after going back to Canada, I was actually living in St. John's, Newfoundland. Okay. I decided to quit my job actually 10 years this month, 10 years ago, I guess it was 2011, January. And I quit my job and went to work for a nonprofit that was doing data collection in the slums of Rio. And the lady who ran it was a woman I met in the airport, like, again, very randomly. So that was a volunteering internship. And so at the time I was there, I was looking for ways to get in the tech scene. And a friend of mine from university sent me a link to a startup accelerator called 21212, which was 21 means is the area code for Rio, and 212 is the area code for New York. So basically connecting Brazilian entrepreneurs with American investors. Okay. And so it looked really cool. It was kind of like the Y Combinator or Techstars of Brazil. And those are pretty prominent startup accelerators from the US. And I just showed up one day. Well, that's not true. I got an invite, but basically I just showed up one day to this event called Angel Day. So they have, in accelerators, they have these kind of pitch events where the companies can go and present their company and try and raise money. So they had an Angel Day, and then they were going to have a demo day, which was more for like the venture capitalists. So when I showed up, everyone thought I was an angel investor because I'm like this foreigner, look like an American.
Sure.
And
this guy's got loads of money.
Yeah, they started pitching. Yeah, they started
$10 in his pocket.
Exactly. No, like unemployed. So I started telling these guys, like, I'm not an investor. Like, your company sounds good. I kind of played along with it for a while, but eventually ended up getting connected to one of the companies because the guy was going to get kicked out of the accelerator unless he found a non-technical co-founder, because he was like very much a developer, designer, Brazilian guy who was really good at like building a website, but he wasn't so good at sales and customer development and actually making a business. So he had built this kind of like of the original version of Facebook, where it's like university student management program, but not based on like friendships and dating or whatever you use Facebook for. I guess it was more like finding rides or education, like sharing college materials. Okay. But he didn't know how to make it a business, and so I joined, saying, hey, like, I'll join your company, pay me like very little amount, and if it works out and we raise money, I want X%. I think it was 5 or 10%, and he agreed. So that was on a Sunday, and then Monday we started working and got into this accelerator, and we went through the demo day, did the pitch.
And is this what eventually became VanHack?
No. So this is the story where I get fired. Okay. So right after that, I actually ended up getting fired from that company. It didn't work out. A bunch of problems. Anyway, long story short, I met a lot of developers when I was there, though. That's kind of the most important thing, because when I was in the accelerator, a lot of the tech professionals that I met were interested in Canada because they knew I was Canadian. So they said, either I want to learn like how to move to Canada, or my friends do, or I kind of felt this like, I don't know, just people kept bringing it up. It became a theme. And at the same time, after I got let go, I decided to create an online course to teach people how to move to Brazil. So it was called Brazil Career Blueprint, and it was just basically how to move to Brazil and get a job. And I told my Brazilian friends that, and they all said, I'm doing this the wrong way. I have to help Canadians.
The other way around?
Yeah, Brazilians move to Canada.
Interesting.
So that kind of was in my mind, and then eventually ended up moving back to Canada and started VanHack when I created this, like a few landing pages just to test the idea back in Vancouver in 2014. Wow. So very long story short. But
to summarize, basically you're down in Brazil, you're working at Valet, you're going to these tech events.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is two experiences that you have. One is your personal experience of how challenging, maybe it wasn't challenging, it sounds like challenging it was to move into Brazil.
Yeah, definitely challenging.
Coming up the idea of like helping other people be able to come into Brazil.
That's right.
So knowing that experience, people could use help with that. Like it's not an easy experience moving to a foreign country. Combined with seeing the amount of talent in Brazil and people wanting to get out of that country and go to, like our friend William.
Yes.
Right?
Perfect example.
Who's from Brazil.
Well,
and wanting to move to
No,
is that it?
That's it. Yeah.
Interesting.
It just
and that's the VanHack sort of starting point.
Exactly.
You realizing your own personal experience of what's involved to go into a new country. It's quite probably quite complex and stressful, especially if you've never done it before. Combined with the fact that there's all this talent out there looking for a better life.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the first idea of VanHack was not a recruiting company, it was a school. So the idea was because I was working with kind of ed tech before, I decided to create a course to teach developers English. The candidates or the people that I met in Brazil, they started reaching out to me when I was back home, and I didn't know anything about the recruiting industry at all. So I thought, hey, why don't I just create an English course for developers and teach them how to say Ruby on Rails or PHP or MySQL without an accent, and how to do job interviews and make resumes and that kind of thing.
Oh, interesting.
Because back in 2014, 2015, the idea of hiring from abroad was really not as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah. Sure.
So that was the first idea, and then about a year into that, I started getting kind of questions or asked from employers for introductions to talent. And they started making intros, and then the business of recruiting emerged from that. Yeah.
Well, let's pause there for a minute, because that'll be a good segue into talking about what VanHack does today. I want to pivot and talk about the fact that there seems to be a common problem, and you can elaborate for me on if this is a local problem, is it a problem across Canada, or is this a global problem when it comes to tech talent?
Yeah.
Everywhere I talk, all the companies I talk to, anybody who's trying to hire a tech person, or even on our own team as we're trying to hire people with technical skills, like putting together videos and podcasts, it's really tough to find these people. Is this just a local problem? Is this a problem across Canada, or is this a global phenomenon?
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon, definitely. So one of our values at VanHack is the internet has no borders, so it's everywhere. And really the tech talent shortage, according to McKinsey, by 2030, there's going to be 85 million open tech jobs across the world.
85 million by 2030.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty huge. And I was just down in the US for a conference at the end of the year last year, December, and I started talking to a few of the folks there, and I said, did you know there's a million open tech jobs here in the US? And the guys looked at me like, are you kidding me? There's like 5. And the number just keeps going up because, and so it's really...
and when did you start VanHack?
2015.
Has this problem become... is it the same? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better?
I would say it's gotten...
When I say worse, what I mean by...
more jobs.
Yeah.
I think so, because...
more openings, less people to fill.
Exactly, because if you look at how many people learned how to code 5 years ago, how many people learned how to code 10 years ago, it's even less, right? So tech has really started going mainstream, like things like the programming boot camps or teaching code in elementary school. That's only last 3-4 years phenomenon. And by the time those kids graduate, that'll be 15, 20 years from now. Although they probably can start working when they're 15 if they know how to code. But the point is that it's not enough people. And on the job side, on the demand side, like every company now is a tech company. With COVID especially, it's accelerated that for everyone. Like one of our largest customers is a grocery store company. Like they operate the largest grocery store chain in Canada. Well, now they have to have an app. Now they have to have online ordering and all those kind of things. So there's a huge demand, not only from traditional tech companies, but from these kind of let's say newspapers. They didn't used to be tech companies. Yeah. Now they're pure tech companies almost, other than the writers. So I think the demand is really gone up a lot, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And I think that it's going to be a problem that keeps getting worse. So as much education that can be put into the STEM field, the better.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about some numbers around what you're seeing with respect to, like, is majority of your customers, so you have customers and you have
candidates. Employers, candidates. We see them both as a kind of customers, but we get paid by the employers. Okay. Although without the candidates, we don't get paid at all.
Okay, that makes sense. So what percentage of your candidates are being placed in roles and jobs in Canada?
For now, it's the majority, so around 60-70%.
And the balance?
The balance is in Europe and in the US.
Okay. And where are most of these people coming from?
Our top 3 countries are Brazil, Nigeria, and India.
Brazil, Nigeria, and India. Like, these are 3 completely different parts of the world.
Yeah. Well,
is there a particular type of talent coming from Nigeria versus India versus Brazil?
Not really. They're just large populations in countries that are still emerging, where there's people who are interested in relocation.
So these people must be educated, no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all 3 of those countries have great education systems.
Well, what kind of educational criteria do these people have when they're applying?
Well, a lot of it with the tech is that you can learn online. For example, my brother, he graduated in a non-tech field, and he learned how to code on his own online, and now is a CTO or like tech co-founder at a startup that just raised a lot of money, and so he's doing well. So you don't really need to have a university degree, although places like...
But you must have to have some kind of certification or something like that.
No. I mean, you can code and that's it. Like the certification is, does developer who's interviewing you think you're good. And that's one of the good things about tech is that anyone could get into it. Yeah, it's because I mean it moves and changes so quickly. So if you try and certify it, the certification will be, I mean, other than like maybe AWS and something like Amazon or companies that really know what they're talking about in terms of tech, Microsoft, etc., it's hard to certify. And there's always a new programming language coming out or a new better way of doing things. So the market moves so quickly that if you try and certify it, you'll be behind. I think.
So let's go back to these three because I just find it so interesting. The top three countries are Brazil, India, and Nigeria. So what about language? English language is this an issue or?
Definitely.
Does it matter?
It definitely matters. With VanHack, actually, that's one of the ways we recruit is we teach English to developers, or not necessarily teach them English, but help them refine their English, because a lot of them have, like, let's say intermediate English or almost good enough English, and about 2-3 months into our courses they'll be able to get a job. A lot of them come to us and have great English. India, everyone speaks English, but maybe they'll tweak a little bit exactly how they present themselves. Nigeria as well, English is the main language in that country. And
then what kind of roles are these people applying for? What is it?
Senior software engineer, data scientist, DevOps engineer, designers, basically people usually with 5-10 years experience. It's really where that gap in the market is. People who are leading teams, really the more experienced folks, and that's where the challenge is here in Canada or in US, everywhere, is finding people who've done it before and can mentor the next generation.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow, this is fascinating. So 60% of your talent comes to Canada. Is that just because there's so much demand for what you're doing right now? There's no need to really go into the States?
No, we're actively working to expand in the US. So when VanHack started, we were very purely focused on relocation, just finding developers who want to move. And US, the immigration laws are so complicated and don't work very well. That it's really hard to bring developers to the US. They have this H-1B program where they have like 300,000 people who apply and only 80,000 actually get it, and it takes 8 months for those people to move. It's a whole mess.
Wow.
So they need to go through some immigration reform, but that's actually Canada's advantage, because we 4 years ago came out with a global talent stream visa, which is basically a fast track visa for software engineers. You just need to have a job offer from an employer. The government validates it's a real employer, with a salary that's above the median wage, and you can come on a 2-year work permit. Your spouse can work, your kids can study in school, and in 1 year you can get your Canadian residency, your PR. So it's a really great program.
And what kind of jobs or criteria does this fast track program cover? I mean, does it cover people like, and I think of what you guys do is like more arts-based talent of producing video content?
No, it's pretty strictly on software.
Is software?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
like
it's not
coders.
and it's not like engineers who are like helping build buildings and stuff like
Unfortunately not. Like, I think it should be expanded to more roles, but it is kind of a new program.
It's literally programmers.
It's just programmers and software and designers as well, DevOps. So anything with tech, like
So this is a fast track program that was implemented 4 years ago.
That's right.
And you started your company 5-ish years ago, a little more 5 years ago. So once that came into place, did that make a material change?
It was huge.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, it didn't happen right away, but
I hate to want to give Justin Trudeau any credit for anything, but maybe we have to give him a little bit here. So it's been a good program.
No comment on that point.
Let's open it up. Come on, Ilya. Immigrant from another country,
Hey, I think diversity in all forms, whether that's government or other parts, is needed. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, okay.
But no, I think yes, the Trudeau government did a good job with this program.
Okay.
I'm sure other governments that come in after will also keep this program. It's a no-brainer. Like, who doesn't want more taxpayers? Like, Canada's competing with Germany, with Netherlands, with Ireland, with Australia, with the US for taxpayers. Governments and countries are competing on a global basis. So
give a context of how much time it takes. So like if I was a non-technical, like I was a tech person but not in this very tight defined criteria of being a coder.
Yeah.
How long? But I have someone who wants to give me a job. How long would it take me to get approved? Probably.
So sorry, if you weren't a coder, if you're not in tech, I think the regular kind of version would probably be something like 6 to 8 months. Actually, we don't deal with it, so I don't know the exact number now. It's pretty backed up.
High fire hose in this one category.
Yeah, it just this one category.
And how fast?
About 2 months, 2-3 months.
2 months.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is that they can start working remotely before they relocate.
Really?
Yeah, they can start working from their home country. So it's literally
a guy in Nigeria who I just finished my coding for masters kind of program.
Yep.
I go to your website, to VanHack. You guys help find me an employer.
Yeah.
And like literally 2 months later, I could be living in Canada.
That's right. Yeah, and you could be earning in Canadian dollars 2 weeks later, or whenever your notice period is.
Wow, that's because there's no like you said, there's no borders, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We had this one story during COVID where a guy was living in the Amazon jungle, the Amazon rainforest in Brazil, and he was getting paid, and he couldn't leave his house because of COVID or anything. It's such a remote place. But he was telling me that every month that was going by, because of the exchange rate, he was getting paid like $2,000 more or Brazilian currency, because he kept paying the same amount in Canadian, but the exchange rate was getting better for his favor. So he's like, I'm getting a raise every month without doing anything.
It's like the wealthiest dude in the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing, he was working for an Indonesian company who set up offices in Canada. So it's really global. Yeah.
That is really global. And so, how many people are you guys helping process and moving into Canada?
Last year, total hires was 540 for the entire company. Yeah. I would say, I don't know offhand, but I would say probably something like 350, maybe 375 were for Canada.
Yeah.
All time, I think we brought around 1,000 people to Canada so far.
So let me go back to that quote you gave, Ilya, which is that report that said by 2030, which is 8 years from now, there'll be 85 million open job placements for people in the tech space.
Yeah, it's also one of those things, like probably some consultants may note that up in a room, right? But the point is there's just way more jobs than people.
Like, what was the bottleneck of not doubling that number last year for VanHack?
Good question.
Are there enough jobs available? Like if all things were open for you except for the last part, which is like the employers, were there enough employers to take on 1,000 people?
The hardest part is really the matching, because you have the job and you have the candidates, and it's like there's so many factors that go into a hire, right? Like, it has to be the right person that passes all the interviews. They have to get the right salary for them to accept the offer. There's all these kind of factors that really get in the nitty gritty of recruiting that have to go right.
So do you have a fairly high drop off rate, either by the employer or by the potential candidate? Or?
It's mostly from the employer. Like, probably, I don't know actually the stat, but probably like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 candidates that we send get hired. But then there's some jobs that we have where companies say we want to hire 20, 30 people, but it's just hard for us to make those hires because they have a high bar, or there's not enough candidates with that skill. A lot of it is us just hiring internally for ourselves. Like, we need more recruiters internally for us, or finding the right talent. So right now we're trying to double from 2021 to 2022. We'll see how it goes. But we did triple from 2020 to 2021. So things are definitely growing. But a lot of it is just smoothing out the processes and the kinks and everything. So a lot of automation, hiring the right people on our team, things like that. But that's a fun question. What's the bottleneck?
Now, after those 3 countries, being Brazil, Nigeria, and India, what are the next 3 places that are kind of the most common to draw talent from?
Let's say Eastern Europe, so Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. Also Colombia and Argentina, other parts of South America.
Right.
And then we're starting to see Southeast Asia rise actually a lot. So Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam. Right. So it's good talent there as well.
Do you ever see any kind of correlation between political unrest and applications? Like, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty around the Ukraine. You're from Russia initially. You probably have better take on what's really going on there than us, most of us.
I had to try not to pay attention to it, honestly.
But like, do you ever see that kind of thing?
Definitely, we had there was some protests in Belarus last year. I remember a lot of candidates from Belarus signed up. The whole problem started with Brazil originally during the 2014, 2015. They had the impeachment of the president, and just the economy was not going very well. So a lot of it, I see what we do is, we change people's lives, right? They go from a country where they don't have the best infrastructure and it's not very safe and there's a lot of problems, and then they get to come to a great place like Canada or Berlin or Amsterdam or London and live in a country that they feel good in. Let's put it that way.
What causes a person, it seems like with this massive shortage of talent and all these job opportunities, it seems like anybody who's a good coder kind of has lots of choices.
Oh yeah, they get.
And so if I'm in Nigeria, what are the reasons why people would want to move to Canada versus just picking up a job with a Canadian company but staying, like that example of the guy in the Amazon just making a bundle of money living in the Amazon. What causes these people? Is there a common trend? Is it what makes them want to make that physical move to Canada?
I think a lot of it has to do with family. Okay. And quite frankly, safety.
That makes sense.
But a lot of people want to stay remote and stay where, in their home countries, and that's great. We're even seeing a trend where people stay in their home country, relocate, come back to their home country for a little while, and really have that work from anywhere feel. But I think the main factors that drive people to want to relocate are, just not feeling safe when you're walking down the street, wondering how your son or daughter, will get back from school.
That's a good point.
Traffic. When I lived in Sao Paulo, I spent like an hour and a half a day in traffic, and it was pretty painful over and over again. And I think really the main thing is about giving people that choice. Hey, do you want to move? Do you not want to move? Do you want to? For example, we have a few people on our team going back to their home countries and working remotely from their home countries, and so they can spend that time with their family there, but then they can come back here where they, settling here. So it's really whatever the candidate wants.
Okay, Ilya, can you provide some color on the types of businesses in Canada that you are sending these talent to? Like, you mentioned grocery store chain, and it sounds to me like it's all over the map. But is there any particular sort of type of industry that's really you're spending a lot of time helping right now?
I definitely would say it's all over the map. There's employers from every industry. Every kind of company needs software engineers. One area that I'm seeing a little bit more of a growth now is fintech. Okay. We're working with a very large fintech company from the prairies that's hiring a lot of people. We're working with an NFT kind of Web3 company here locally that's hiring a lot of people as well. So just in the finance, crypto space, that's definitely booming. So we're seeing a lot of talent needed there.
I would assume most of these talent that are coming to Canada, they're relocating to the head offices of where these companies are based, or do some of them?
Not always.
No?
Yeah, okay. That's actually been a cool trend we saw recently. It's post-pandemic. It's just you can move. A lot of companies just post anywhere in Canada, so you can live anywhere. We had a company in Toronto hire a machine learning engineer, and he really wanted to move to Vancouver. So at first they were kind of like skeptical about it. Oh, you have to work EST and stuff like that, and then they realized that they're making him wake up at 6 a.m. every day. Right. So maybe they became a little bit more flexible. And they're like, and we've had companies from, let's say, places where it's not, the most desired place to live in Canada. They've been much more flexible, and so you can move anywhere, live anywhere. So we had someone move to Sheshelt, if I'm saying that right, recently, and that was pretty cool. Sheshelt. Yeah,
that's a tough one.
Tongue twister. But no, it's. I really think it's exciting, and it's also not just that. It's in different countries. We actually had a job posted from the Cayman Islands recently. So there's a tech company in the Cayman Islands that's hiring people to go down to the Caribbean.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's kind of cool to have people off the beaten path.
Yeah, wow, that's really neat. The majority of those candidates that do move here to Canada, for example, do they move to major city centers like Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, or do they tend to go to small communities outside of that?
Our top cities actually are Vancouver, Toronto, and Winnipeg. So Winnipeg, surprising number 3. That's actually because we worked with Skip the Dishes and helped them hire 120 people. Oh, wow. And we're working with a lot of other companies in the Winnipeg area. We also have done a lot of hires in Saskatoon and Calgary. Yeah. So the prairies are a big tech hub and growing one. And I find that's a nice kind of combination because people who come to Canada as immigrants, through VanHack, I should say, they're usually in their mid-30s. They either have young kids or thinking of settling down and having kids. So being able to live in a place like the prairies where they can buy a big house and have a yard and no traffic is really appealing to them. They don't need to be, downtown on Yonge Street in Toronto going to the parties. Not that you can do that these days anyway. Yeah. But that's really much more appealing to them is having that home family lifestyle.
Okay. That's interesting. Where do these candidates find out about VanHack in the first place? Like, how do you?
Our top channels are LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and word of mouth. So really just social media, and people telling each other. A lot of times when someone gets hired, they tell all their friends.
Yeah. So you've clearly addressed this global issue that's not just a local one to Vancouver or to Canada, that there's this massive shortage of tech talent out there. So why don't we spend a bit of time talking about VanHack itself, the company. You're obviously the founder of it. You're obviously still running it today. How many employees do you have at VanHack today?
I think 77.
77.
Yeah, 77.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah.
And are they mostly located here in Vancouver?
No, we have a globally distributed workforce. That's been one of our secret weapons from the beginning. We haven't had to, we should say this, we've been able to move faster because we've been able to hire from anywhere, whether that person stays in their home country or we actually relocated a few of our team members here as well. Recently brought one of our designers over and bringing our machine learning engineer over as well. So we have people in, I believe, 12 or 13 different countries. I don't want to name all of them because I'll probably miss some. But yeah, it's a lot of people are here in Canada or in Vancouver. We have people in other parts of Canada as well.
Yeah.
But
so you were a perfectly good example of who your clients
exactly.
are.
We try to lead by example.
Yeah, interesting.
We hire like tech talent from VanHack. So we post jobs on our own platform.
Yeah.
Well,
is your industry fairly fragmented today still, or are you like the Google of tech placement talent? I know we said earlier.
One day.
But is it still a fairly fragmented business?
It's very fragmented. There's tons of recruiting companies out there or different solutions for recruiting. I think it's like a $500 billion industry globally. And there's like 3 or 4 companies, Adecco, Manpower, Randstad, that are over $1 billion.
Yeah.
But the rest are very, very small, kind of all the way to one person recruiting company, just one person making intros, and a lot of mid-size as well. So it's super fragmented. And I don't know if there will be kind of a roll-up. It's hard to say. I think there's just a room for a lot of different players because there's so many different niches and different industries and tech and and science, medicine, etc.
As far as where you're seeing trends going right now into the future for VanHack, is there any particular market segment you're trying to go after? Or is there, going back to that concept of bottleneck, are you focused more on trying to get more talent, more customers to place them with? Is there a particular industry or sector you're trying to focus on?
Right now we're really focused on the US and Europe. I feel like we're kind of well known in Canada, like we're the largest international tech recruiting company in Canada, but we really want to go after the biggest tech market in the world, which is the US. They have the most open jobs, the most frankly, money to pay for all these people. It's the biggest economy in the world. So that's a really big market for us that we're focused on. And then Europe as well is a very large market with all the different countries there. So this morning I was actually interviewing a salesperson for Germany and have a webinar tomorrow with a US Tech Association. So really just trying to expand outside of Canada and be really a truly global player. Because I think we've done a great job in Canada and we're going to keep driving business here. But it's a big world out there.
Let me I'm going to just put a little twist on this interview and talk to you a bit about nurses for a moment. Now, I know you're a tech recruiting guy, but you've just talked a little bit earlier about this fast track program that the Trudeau government put into place 4 years ago. Now, there's a big nursing shortage in our country right now. And as you highlighted, these people who are applying and getting these job offers, as long as they can code and the interviewee that's interviewing them is convinced of that, that's all they need. But in order to be a doctor, a nurse, a dentist, one of these kind of professions, you kind of have to have some legitimate medical training.
It's a little bit bigger problem when the server goes down or someone has the wrong medication.
Exactly. But I mean, I got to assume that countries like India and Brazil and Nigeria probably have qualified nurses or something close to qualified, maybe not to our standards, but do you have any suggestions for the government, or would you see this as an opportunity for VanHack to be able to, because there's definitely a shortage?
I don't think specifically for us because it's such a focus and we'd have to be selling to a completely different type of employer. But I'm right there with you. Like I think there's a huge backlog right now in our immigration system that they're working through, and COVID didn't made things more complicated. And also I know that a lot of the nurses that are in Canada are from the Philippines, or I believe from the Philippines. So there needs to be more healthcare workers here, and I do also think that it should be a little bit easier. Right now, I think that the process, and I understand why it's rigorous, but I think it's a little bit too much. So I think it's almost protectionist, to be honest.
Interesting.
My wife is a dentist, and so when we're trying to go through the process to become a dentist, it's like something like $50,000 worth of fees just to be able to take all the tests.
This is a perfectly good example, because my wife is also a dentist.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because there's these highly qualified dentists.
Yeah.
That come to Canada. Where's your wife from?
Brazil.
From Brazil.
Yeah.
They come here and they work as certified dental assistants.
Yes, that's right.
Because that's a fairly easy.
That's the route that they recommended she did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so these people are not being used for their full talent.
Yeah.
Or they go and teach at the very few schools. Like if you look at the majority of people who teach at the UBC dentistry, school of dentistry,
I didn't know that.
are actually dentists from other countries.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they can teach it, but they just can't practice. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
it's you have to have a balance.
Sure.
And I think for nurses, they're definitely, I don't know all the details, but we should be shipping in as many as qualified nurses as we can, right? The healthcare system is very backed up right now. Let's put it that way.
There was an article that I read recently on BetaKit. It was from back in September, which said, studies show the tech industry is the industry most likely to lift Canada out of the pandemic-induced economic slump that we're in.
100%.
See that? You see that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you just look at Vancouver, BC, I think tech is the number one employer in the province. I don't know the stats. I'm pretty sure it is. I think we're very focused on, maybe mining or lumber or kind of real estate or movie. All these industries are great, but they're all finite resources. With tech, it's a creative industry, and it's just knowledge workers, so that you don't really need a lot of infrastructure. You just need the people here. And Canada has this I guess window of opportunity where every tech worker that comes to Canada, they're going to be employed. There's no unemployed tech workers in Canada. And if there are, please introduce me to them. So they come, and they're going to create jobs. And they're going to get great salaries. And, they're going to be paying for...
They land to the ground running.
Yes.
They're paying taxes right away.
That's right. Yeah. We need someone to pay for the schools in Nunavut and in the hospitals, right? So, I think it's tech. Of course, I'm biased. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But every person that comes in, we have the data. They get a $100K salary on average.
Wow.
Right? You're coming into Canada with a $100K salary. Your spouse is probably going to work. Let's say they're making $50K. That's $150K, and how much of that is taxes? Let's say $40,000. Yeah. So they're paying $40,000 in taxes per year for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Right. Amazing. So that's a multi-million dollar asset for the government, who will help pay for the schools and the hospitals and all those things.
Are many of your customers on the employment side, are many of them subsidiaries of foreign companies?
I was just going to say that, Andrew. A lot of them are. They're U.S. companies, or there's that Indonesian company I mentioned that open up Canadian offices because it's easy to bring tech talent to Canada, where it's hard to bring them to the U.S. So they open up these Canadian engineering offices.
So there's a massive arbitrage opportunity here for our nation.
Yes.
Where we can literally have people who are getting paid by U.S. employers.
Yes.
But that money's flowing into Canada.
Yes.
And that is being generating tax dollars.
Yeah, look at the post office.
Yeah,
Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon.
That's
a
prime example.
Right. Yeah.
Microsoft. I think Amazon probably employs more people downtown Vancouver than anyone else. I would be surprised if there's another employer that has more office space and employees than Amazon.
Yeah.
One of the world's largest companies.
Yeah.
Apple opening up in the Deloitte building right there, right across the street.
Yeah,
so you're absolutely right. And there's a lot of these kind of smaller companies like Salesforce, Grammarly, Brex that have done the same thing here in Vancouver, also in Toronto. And that's all money that's coming to Canada from non-Canadian companies.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Such a good point. And then, of course, you're also paying taxes. as a company. I mean, you're generating revenue, you're creating economic activity, and
that's right.
If you're not profitable today, at some point, I'm sure you will be. And
it's modest. We're trying to reinvest our into future growth. But one thing I just want to point out while we're talking about this idea of people coming to countries, I was just down in South America over the break, and there's this one in Uruguay, and one of the things that they're working on is creating a digital nomad visa, which is basically a visa where any tech worker who has a job, who's making over a certain amount of money, can come to that country without having to have a local job offer. Wow. So let's say there's a tech worker in San Francisco, they're working for, let's say, Facebook, and they want to move to Vancouver. If Facebook didn't have a Canadian entity, that would be impossible for them. But if with this visa, we can bring the world's tech talent to Canada without having to have the employers physically in Canada. Yeah. So that'll basically make any knowledge worker able to come to Canada and live and pay taxes here.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think that should happen. I think every country should have it. I know Estonia and about 40, 50 other countries have it.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're not doing right now, and I think something
digital
we should do.
Nomad visa.
Digital nomad visa. Yeah, maybe it has a different name, but the idea of a digital nomad is someone who works remotely. Someone just works online.
Yeah.
They can live anywhere, so they're a nomad. And we should bring them all, as many of them, to Canada, because if we won't, then other countries will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the stat that typical tech worker immigrating into Canada is going to make about $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
With a spouse, maybe just to make an assumption, they make $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
$150,000 a year in Saskatoon's probably a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that one of your top placement cities is Vancouver, and Vancouver is a very unaffordable city.
Yes.
Is there a bit of a sticker shock for a lot of these immigrants when they come here and they're like, oh wow, I'm making 10 times what I made in Nigeria, but I'm also paying 20 times what I paid in rent?
I don't think so. I mean,
they're just happy to be here.
They're happy to be here, and honestly, like 2-bedroom apartments, $2,000-$3,000 in rent, something like that. Let's call it $3,000 on the high end.
Yeah.
After taxes, you're probably making $15K on $150K. I don't know exactly, but let's say you're making $10K.
Yeah.
That's only 30% of your income on rent. Sure, maybe it's not the best, but you're happy. You're very happy, and the first question people ask us after they get hired is, how do I get my Canadian citizenship, or how do I get my permanent residency, which then turns into citizenship. We don't see many people going back.
So affordability isn't really an issue here
it definitely is an issue in Canada, and I don't want to be understaying the fact that we need to be building a lot more housing supply in this country, especially in this city, in Vancouver. So I think there's a whole conversation about how do we make it easier not to have all the red tape that it needs to be to building condos or houses. But for our specific industry and our talent, and they're also happy not to live downtown. Like they can live, a lot of them go to Burnaby or places where it's maybe a little bit more, they can get more bang for their buck.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I think it's also interesting because when I think about, I'm born and raised here, and I think about a lot of the people I know who are in my same category, like born and raised here.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated because they can't afford to buy a nice single dash to home in Vancouver with the white picket fence, and like that train has gone, folks. Unless you're like really, really fortunate. But that's interesting is when you come from a country like Brazil, I don't think you're probably used to being able to have a fully detached home in the first place. If you're coming from...
A lot of them are living in great houses, but it's not about the house. It's about the city that they're living in and the quality of life and the safety and just general education system for their kids. In Brazil, if you're sending your kids to public school, like high school and elementary school, they're not going to go to university. It's not even a question, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess the point is that there's a lot of locals here.
Yeah.
You grew up here too, basically, since you're 5.
Yeah.
Who don't really probably appreciate how fortunate we have it.
I guess so. Yeah. I will say that we did have a couple from Belarus. The spouse is in this case the husband got hired from VanHack, and then the spouse is actually also an engineer, software engineer. They're making over $200K combined salary. They were able to buy a condo in North Vancouver. So it is possible for newcomers on the tech to get those jobs, to buy that property.
Yeah, a little piece of the American dream, dream. Now, Ilya, there's a company, an organization called Success.
Oh yes,
we actually interviewed Queenie Chu, their CEO. And their business model, or what they're supposed to be doing, is helping immigrants in transitioning into the Canadian lifestyle.
Yep.
Does VanHack do any part in that process?
So we do. We help with the relocation process all the way from pre-arrival to settlement, like post-arrival.
Yeah.
We actually help the candidate with their visa process, which is really important, both the employer and the candidate with all the paperwork. But other than that, we help with introducing them to a housing agency, introducing them to the banks.
Introducing them to your mom.
My mom and dad, if they want to buy a place, usually they can't because of the tax here in BC of the 15% if you're not a permanent residency. Maybe 1 year later we'll introduce them to my family if they want. We've actually only helped one person buy a house. It's not a big source of business. But no, the more important thing is we'll help them get settled for sure. We like to be with them every step of the way. And before COVID, we'd actually do a lot of meetups where we'd have like a barbecue, or we'd all go to craft beer, and or in Toronto we'd go to a bar downtown. And I used to travel. I've even done a VanHack meetup in Malta.
Oh, really?
So we brought 10 engineers to Malta, and so when I was living in Europe, we flew down to Malta and had a good pizza dinner with them. It was really fun. So it's really cool just seeing different parts of the world and people settling in. It's a big part of what we do. Like a lot of people like myself on the team are immigrants. We know the pain, and we have, right now what we do is we just do virtual. So we have WhatsApp groups where they can like join the WhatsApp group and get connected to their friends. Someone was asking about a dermatologist the other day, like things like that.
That's good. That's really good that you're doing that. To finish up, let's talk about if I'm an employer and I'm looking to hire this kind of talent. Where does it start at VanHack? I just call one of your sales agents, and like how does it work? You charge based on success?
That's right.
Okay.
If you're watching this, want to get started, just vanhack.com. Click on I'm hiring, sign up. Pretty easy process. We usually call people right away after they sign up, or send an email to book a demo. The business model we have is very much aligned with only getting paid if we're successful. So really like the interests of us and the employer are aligned. And if it doesn't work out, we have a full money back guarantee in the first 3 months, which almost never happens because our candidates really want to impress the employer and make that move or keep working for that international company.
Point. Like when you're getting, you got real commitment from these people.
Yes.
If someone's going to travel from Nigeria and really change their life. They're coming with all the right reasons.
That's a big selling point is the engagement and the retention. We've had a lot of people who've, of course, we've had times that didn't work out, of course, but I think more than local hires, the international hires have that skin in the game that you just mentioned. They're changing their lives. A lot of times the spouse comes first, and then then the family comes later. Not often, sometimes. So it's pretty serious. So they definitely want to go above and beyond. And we've had a lot of people promoted. I mentioned Skip the Dishes. One of our hires is actually the head of engineering at Skip the Dishes now. He was able to get promoted.
Wow.
A lot of the engineering managers as well on that team are. So every time you order food, you can think of us having built that software or helped to. But it's a really big commitment and life change, and people stick around longer. So we did a study of our data. It's about 2.5 years that people stay in the job versus the industry average of 1.5 years. Wow, and we have a lot of examples of people staying 5 years, 6 years. It's just because we've only started really making hires like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, good point.
So that's a really big deal, especially in tech, where the cost of losing a tech worker, it's a huge pain, because you're probably going to take 3-4 months to fill that role again, and then getting people onboarded. That's like looking at 6 months of lost productivity. And in tech, where things move so fast and your competitors are shipping new software, you want those people on the team for as long as possible.
What about fees? Is it kind of a standardized fee guide, or how does that
20% of annual fee. Annual salary, and we also have a model where if a lot of our customers hire 5, 10, 15 people, which is another one of our specialties, we can do a lot of volume, whereas other recruiting companies maybe just can do 1 or 2 at a time. Okay, I'm sure there's other good ones out there too, but the point is that we have a bulk model where companies can prepay for a certain number of hires and get a discount, like kind of like wholesale, like going to Costco.
That makes sense. Well, this is really great, Ilya. I'm so impressed with what you've built here.
Thanks, Andrew.
My cousin years ago had started a overseas English teaching type of recruitment business, so I'm a little familiar with how the model works.
Cool.
But what I think the message that I think anybody who's listening to this has got to realize is that guys like you, we need to applaud, because you've created like the most perfect business model in Vancouver in Canada. You're basically employing people. Some of them maybe are not in Canada, but you're employing people. You're helping bring in talent. You're employing people directly, but you're also bringing in talent, largely from, you say American companies. So this is money coming from abroad into our country and then generating tax revenue. I mean, this is what we need in our economy.
No, I appreciate that. Just one little thing. Most of our customers are actually Canadian customers. So I don't want to scare away the smaller local businesses, smaller than Amazon. That's actually the Amazons and Microsofts. They're the ones who create the problem because they suck up all that talent.
Oh, okay.
And then the earlier stage, maybe 2-3 years, 5, 10 person, 20 person startup, they struggle because it's hard to compete with salary.
But this is where you feel that need.
That's exactly our customers that we like to work with. Anyway, I appreciate everything you just said. Thank you. That really means a lot.
That's really good. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ilya Brotzky, founder and CEO of VanHack, helping fill the void on the Canadian and in Europe and the States, this growing need to hire tech talent and programmers and coders. Mm-hmm. Best of luck in 2022, and I look forward to hearing more success stories as things carry on for you.
Thanks, Andrew. It was
Thanks
really fun.
Being on today.
Yeah, this was great.
Okay.